Was sad to see the news today filled with images of violence. This time, police officers had to turn and retreat as a street party they tried to break up in Brixton, London, spiralled out of control. Seemingly powerless to intervene in any meaningful way, it was another depressing reminder of the terrible relations between the police and a generation that seems to have been taught to hate them. Now, some have jumped up and said last night's events undermined the Black Lives Matter movement, but last night's event had nothing to do with BLM. It was rather a group of hooligans finding an excuse to damage public property. But something has to be done. After 22 cops were injured during what I am going to call riots in Brixton, surely the police need to start using more extreme force to regain control of the streets. My phone number 0344 499 1000 if you want to weigh in on this. Keith says it's obvious that they have to use a strong arm approach. They are losing control of the streets. It doesn't help when they run away from the first sign of trouble. Bob Snipes says we need to take back the streets. We can't have a world where we are ruled by the mob. Craig Parsons says time for two forces like in other European countries, one for traffic and litter offences and doing symbolic virtuous stuff like dancing at Pride and dropping to a knee, and then the police for cracking down on crime and disorder and making us safe. Andrew B says I want to see riot, shields, tear gas and water cannons. I want mass cuffings and bookings. Patik says it's been a very, very long time since the police controlled the streets. So a huge amount of feedback from you coming in. But one man who knows all about this vicious cycle between the public and the police is Kevin Hurley. He is the former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Metropolitan Police, who has written an incredibly powerful article for this week's Spectator magazine, saying to save black lives, police top brass must face reality. Kevin Hurley, great to have you on the show. Of course, when you wrote this article, you had no idea about these events that were going to erupt in Brixton, but it seems so appropriate given much of what you said.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But my experience of policing tells me in this hot weather, with this kind of inflammatory powder-keg stuff that's going on with Black Lives Matters, and the completely false narrative that's going out was going to blow things up whenever police started to speak to any groups of young black people. I mean, it is nonsense, this idea that they're killing people who are black in police custody. Last year, 16 people died in police custody in the UK. Only one of them were white. Last year, the police shot dead 3 people in the UK. Only one of them were black. Only one of those 16 who died was black.
Got it.
Yeah. Last year, out of the 3 people who were shot dead by police last year, only one of them were black. So it's absolute nonsense, because actually white people are being killed or dying disproportionately in police cells if you do the numbers, because it's quite wrong. So, there's something going on here which is exploiting the sense of anger, the sense of anguish of people who've had a terrible heritage, being taken away from home into a life of wicked slavery, beaten, dreadful, dreadful life. And then, of course, coming over to the UK in the 50s, the grandparents, into what was effectively a post-colonial society where people looked askance at black people, no blacks here or dogs or Irish, for example. And of course, the police that dealt with them in those days were ex-servicemen from the war and from the colonies who would have had the same kind of views that British society had on black people. Well, we've changed from then. But of course, that narrative is still played out and exploited by lots of people. And the net result of it is that nearly 100 black males die every year in the UK now from murder. And we've only got 750 people getting killed. That's including all the white people, Asians, Chinese, whoever gets killed. There's a huge problem with the tiny number of black males who live in the UK, that so many are dying. And what I'm saying in that article is, because the police have learned that whenever they deal with black people, it's going to be hostility, that they're going to be criticised, they're going to get complaints, they're going to be surrounded, they can never do the right thing. A lot of them are voting with their feet and deciding not to stop and search black people. In fact, let black youths get on with it, which is a tragic shame, because lots of black mothers are now losing their sons to the knife or the gun or life imprisonment when their offending sons get sent to prison. We have got to get upstream of this problem and help to change the balance, the way in which people live, help with the parenting, help with the one-parent families when the children are young, so that the kids don't keep going off the rails like this. But we've also got to speak up for the police and defend their situation. Most cops are not racist when they join the police. And if they were and spoke about that, they'd never get in and they'd be chucked out if they were found out. But what happens is they adjust their behaviour to whichever population they are policing. And if whenever you stop and search black people, you immediately get, frankly, pushback, attitude and hostility, you tend, even if you've got the patience of a saint, to take a very assertive position, because you have to control that situation, because you don't want to get injured and you want to go home. I mean, that's what we're really facing here. So police chiefs need to speak up about the real need for society to change and help and support black people to get their place in society, so we don't get all this anger. But we're not going to get this by blaming the police, holding them to account, sacking and firing them. All that's going to do is make the police give up and vote with their feet.
Obviously, you would have seen the incident with George Floyd in the US.
Sure.
Can you understand why there is some anger that has fed its way to the UK? Or do you think the two police operations in the UK and US are just so different that it shouldn't have any impact here?
Well, let me deal with both those. Of course, I understand the anger, and I'll unpack that in a moment. But Britain is very, very different to America. 100 police officers get killed a year. Everyone's got guns. There's extreme violence there. The police are different. But that in no way condones the behaviour that we saw on camera. As a very experienced policeman who's worked the street in very challenging areas, we don't know what happened between trying to get George Floyd in the car,
yes,
in the car, and how he ended up on the ground. Obviously, there was a fight or something went on, but that in no way condones the behaviour of that police officer. He had a duty of care when he detained that suspect to make sure that suspect was taken safely into custody or hospital. And it's quite clear he failed in that duty.
Without doubt.
And the next is, as part of the drug concoction that he'd taken and his cardiovascular disease, and probably what is described in the UK as excited delirium, the force being used at arrest, George Floyd died. There is no way I condone that. And were he to be a police officer in the UK, I've got no doubt in those circumstances, he would be likely to be convicted of manslaughter.
Got it.
Rightly so.
You talk about your time as a borough commander in West London in this article in The Spectator, and say that, in fact, you were blocked from promotion because your superiors were worried that at times you would focus on trying to focus on cutting down crime with black youth. And you say that puts off the police often focusing on tackling crime for black individuals.
Well, I don't want to take it about me. There could be other reasons why I didn't advance further from that. But the fact of the matter is, in this particular circumstance, because I wanted to address gangsters and street robbery. Sorry. Hello. Have you got me?
Yes,
Hello?
We've got you. We've just lost your vision, but I can hear you. There you are. You're back now.
Yeah, because in this particular circumstance, because I wanted to deal with gangsters and street robbers, I tasked civilian analysts to work out who are our most prolific offenders on those offences. And I thought the best way to get the coppers to learn the faces is stick them on the back door of the door that leads out to the yard where they get in their police cars. Because what they do, they wait for the incoming shift's police cars, and they all wait by the door before they go outside, and they drink their tea. So what better way to get them looking at pictures, subliminally if you like, than stick them on the back door of the police station, because even the most idle policeman will have to look at them when he opens the door. Well, a senior officer came along, and they didn't like the fact that they all happened to be black, and told me to take them down or change it so there were more white people. that kind of behaviour of not facing reality, not facing facts, no matter how unpalatable it is not helping the situation. Neither is it when police officers are too scared to stop and search black people because they think they may get a complaint or they might be assaulted and so on. Yes, there are police officers who can behave extremely badly, can be bullies, or they can panic. There is no doubt about that. And training can go some way towards that. But what is also needed is police leadership to speak up for their people, as well as, if I may say, and this is a challenge, if you like, to your Diane Abbotts, your Dawn Butlers, and David Lammies of the world, and say, lots of your constituents' children are being murdered by your constituents' children. You've got to get up and behind the police and support them in trying to prevent your constituents' children being murdered. Don't play to a populist agenda in the hope you'll be getting more votes for it. You've got a duty to engage with social services, education, and police to protect the children of your constituents. Also, you've got to protect them from being sent to prison for life if they are the perpetrator. We need a positive dialogue that faces facts.
Kevin Hurley, former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Metropolitan Police, with his view on why it's important to save black lives. He says the police top brass must face reality.